Hello, everyone. I will ask you to sit down, please, so we can begin this last panel. Thank you. So, thank you for your participation online and in presence. So this fifth panel will be about the big questions. Achieve working time reduction, and we will talk about the experiences and maybe reason on office job sector, industrial sectors, and service sector job with all speakers. So welcome. The idea is that as we've seen in this panel, we summarize some other things and try to move forward. Okay, how we can achieve working reduction based on what we learned on the previous panel. As we see in the last years, we have many trial experimentation on work time reduction that has been flourished all over Europe and the start of movement inside private and public sectors. But despite this general movement towards working time reduction, what we contribute at our level, it's important to remind that only a small number of organizations have achieved it. And with some sectors like office job or service sectors are overrepresented in the trials, but also that we have some small experimentation that is working in industrial sectors and anything. So how do we try to empower people to break, like we say, the myth about it and rally people to campaign? That will be on the discussion with some example. But after this discussion that we experience about pros and cons of each way to implement and define work time reduction, we choose to focus specifically on this panel two questions. What are the motives, so hopes and fear for each sector that will be represented to achieve work time reduction and move forward? And also so a quick summarize of what are the requirements and good practices that needed to achieve this goal. So to speak with that, I thank our three speakers. So we will have Alma Kastlander Nygren from Sweden. That is, you are the central negotiator of the Swedish Association of Health Professionals with experience on negotiated central collective agreement in both public sector and private sector. We will also have Berardina Tommasi, which is a policy officer for dockers and transport in European Transport Workers Federations. And you are trade union leaders for now 10 years with experience in international unions movement, and Mirjam Brunner from UNIA, thank you, from Switzerland. And you are work as a legal advisor and since 2019 as a specialist in working time policy department and agreement. So thank you for your participation. And before just give you the floor, as we not have a representative for office job sectors, I will just make a summarize that has been done in the past panels, in the last panels, and to allow you to focus on your area of expertise and make comparisons if it's okay. So what we are studying with office job is that we are being the most studying, we have more studies from office job experimentation that help us also identify requirements and good practices to implement work time reduction. We have seen three of them that we discussed in the last panel. So combine responsibility and approach from employers, management, and employee, involving time structure and the work culture of companies, of organization, and the need to means time to implement training and money. So combine responsibility as the best way to succeed for trials if employers and employees as involved from the beginning of a project that has talking yesterday, who's launching the experimentation is a good practices to say, and the key is that we need to put time structure that is very clear for employers and employee, but to allow employees to have autonomy to act on that framework that will be decided. We see that we have many models we can experiment, but one of the good things that is coming out of the studies, okay, clear decision of that, and allow workers to have autonomy to adapt and choose. And by creating this time culture very clear, the idea also is to inspire a new time norm and create a new work culture with people. We have a new conscience of time, so they can choose for the private for the day they have, the free time they had, but also to change focus and to set a new norm of what is to be an ideal worker in these companies. So how to spend my time and make better choices, and how to share responsibility, that one to create trust and help people moving forward. That has been pointed by mostly Francesca yesterday. And that we see also one of the third good practices, that is we need to have a preparation time, at least 1 or 2 years to make a successful transitions. And with the importance of training and coaching to help people, because this is a new things to help working time reduction. And so help people that we see that it's important to have training over the experimentation. So, and to tackle also the two risk, to have less interaction between workers, and also to the importance to maintain social times, to limit intensification as we see it. So that's all said. Sorry to summarize it a bit, but now I give the floor to you to present in your sector how is the motive to achieve work time reduction and how you tackled it now, right now. So we want to start. Oh, no, you want to start? Perfect.
Thank you, Adrien. I would like to discuss the working time clauses in two collective labor agreements, one in industry, the other in the service sector. I must begin with a brief contextualization, because in Switzerland, the full-time employees work an average of 42 hours per week. We therefore have the highest full-time standard in Europe. In some sector, the weekly working hours are as high as 43 hours, and overtime is often added. The trade union UNIA has collective labor agreements in various sectors. We have established the 40-hour week in our best collective labor agreements. We do not have a single collective labor agreement with the working week of less than 40 hours. Tracking this 40-hour mark is the main objective of our current campaign for shorter working hours. Until now, it has been practically unthinkable to demand working time of less than 40 hours a week. I would now like to talk about the two collective labor agreements in which we have demands for working hours of less than 40 hours. One in the watchmaking industry and the other in the retail trade. In the watch industry, we have a 40-hour week since 1988. In the negotiations last year, we called for a 36-hour week. It is not a coincidence that this demand arose in the watch industry. Many cross-border staff work in this industry, and many of them would like to have a 4-day week so that they can commute less. At 40 hours, a 4-day week is bad from a health protection perspective. A 36-hour week would still mean long working hours of 9 hours each day. As a trade union, we take a critical view of excessively long working days, but 9 hours per day at 4 days a week is the maximum we can accept. The employers did not respond to the demand for a 36-hour week, and we will maintain our demand for shorter weekly working hours in future negotiations. It has been foreseeable that it would not be achieved in this round of negotiations. But for us, it's a success that we were able to hold discussions with the members and that they support this demand. This cannot be taken for granted, as there is a fear of work intensification. The intensification of work has progressed to such an extent that employees primarily want more staff. For many, this concern comes before the desire of shorter working hours. Let's move to the retail trade. We have a collective labor agreement with Coop, a large retail company in Switzerland, and there the working time is currently 41 hours per week. We have been discussing working hours intensively with our members for several years. The weekly hours, but also working in evenings and on weekends. Better working hours are an important demand in the next negotiations, so they will start next year. We ask specifically for guaranteed weekends off, fixed days off, working days, including the breaks that will be no longer than 10 hours, because actually working days can on 14 hours. And we will ask the 39-hour week. In the retail trade too, there is a great fear of further work intensification, which is why more staff is an important demand. The retail trade is also a low-wage sector, so higher wages remain the most important demand. The fact that our members want us to demand now higher wages, more staff, and shorter and better working hours together is a success and the result of numerous discussions over the years. In conclusion, I can say that cracking the 40-hour mark is a challenge in Switzerland that will probably keep us busy for some time to come. We always call for shorter weekly working hours together with other improvements of working hours, like guaranteed weekends off, evenings off, and better planability. This enables more real free time. Offering more flexibility according to company requirements in exchange of shorter working hours is out of question for us because the quality of leisure time is diminished if it's difficult to plan and compatibility with private life becomes impossible. So, yes, the challenge for the union is to discuss with our members how we demand higher wages, shorter and better working hours and more staff together as a package. And it will be exciting to see how the negotiations will go.
Thank you, Mirjam, for this overview. We are continue our tour. So, Berardina, Alma.
Hello. You should join the EU, and there will be no more 14-hour days. Yeah. I work with the Swedish Association of Health Professionals, and we represent 120,000 registered nurses, licensed midwives, biomedical analysts, and radiologists in both public and private sector. And 90% of our members are women. So every aspect of every term, every condition in our collective agreements is a question of gender equality. As we heard, during the pandemic, the relative degree of freedom increased for many civil servants. Working from home 1 or several days a week does make work-life balance easier. You can load a washing machine, you can go out for a run, you can pick up the kids earlier from school. And it's said that this extra time represents about 10% in salary. But for our members who need to be physically on the workplace, they have none of that degree of freedom. But the pressure gap does not end there. The chances of recovery were, of course, minimal during the pandemic, and the amount of postponed care, the planned care, has put continued pressure on our members. And since a long time, the healthcare sector is also extremely slimmed when it comes to staffing, as we heard as well. The efficiency of the work has already been transformed by our members. So there is like no room for breaks or pauses during the shift. And bear in mind that this is also contact-intensive professions. You have persons in distress, in fear of their lives, almost all the time during your shift. And to add even more to that burden, when the schedules are made, there are already unfilled work shifts due to lack of professionals. So employers often build their operation on planned overtime, which is not allowed, but they do it. And add to that, many work rotating shifts. They work day, evening, night, and they have to constantly adjust their daily rhythm. So doesn't come as a surprise that we have a lot of part-time workers, not because they are not offered full-time jobs, but because they cannot work full-time because the job situation is so stressful. So about 30% of our members work part-time, and they work a lot of part-time. A few years back, the main reason for working part-time was that you had kids under 8, and then you're entitled to part-time. But now the main reason is I need more time for rest and recovery. So yeah, that has changed. And our members also top the list of long-term sick leave. So the members are paying themselves with less salary, less future pensions, and their own health. And as we heard also, we're aware of the demographic changes with fewer people having to care for a growing elderly population. And we need to attract young people to work and to stay in the healthcare sector. But another survey we did also shows that about 80% of our young members feel that the workload is too high, and 21% says it's too high to handle. And 28% doesn't get enough rest and recovery between shifts. And 41% said it's unlikely that they will stay in the healthcare sector all of their professional lives. So we're putting a lot of money and a lot of time on education, and people not going to stay. So what do we do about the situation? In 2016, we negotiated for reduced working hours for members working all or partly night shifts every day of the year. And the outcome was a reduction from 40 hours to 36 hours and 20 minutes, or 34 hours and 20 minutes, depending on the amount of night shifts. And it affected about 30% of our members. And this spring, we wanted to reduce the working hours also for those who work day and evening every day of the year, because our survey showed that those were the ones who worked the most part-time. But our counterpart refused to agree to any form of reduced working hours. But the will to fight was very high amongst the whole union, and we were not prepared to give in. But since our counterpart was equally determined, we were eventually forced to get help from mediators. But the offer given by the mediators were not enough, so we gave notice of overtime blockade and later on strike. And when that came into effect, the overtime blockade affected about 33,000 of our members. This is in the public sector. And the strike, about 3,300. All of this led, of course, to high attention in media. And our president, Zineva Ribeiro, she was all over the place every day. But also our members, who testified how wonderful it was to actually go home after their shift, having a life. So they really gave flesh and blood to what we all considered to be normal. And we also had a great support from the public. About 70% supported our cause and also our conflict measures. The mediation continued with a number of bids, but on the 27th of June, the mediator said that this is it. You're not going to get anything more. We've done as much as we can. We're not coming any further. And there will be no negotiations for at least 6 months. And at that time, we had 4 different work time reductions on the table, affecting about 10% of our members. And with all the risks in mind of continuing without an agreement, the board made the very difficult decision to say yes, despite that the reduction did not affect the ones we intended, but only those who already work night shifts in some way. So we did not come all the way, and we are not satisfied, but we took some really, really important steps. We broke through the ceiling, you could say, and have really put the question of reduced working time on the map in Sweden. And the next negotiation starts in January, so we have a new chance. And almost all the labor market is in negotiations next year, and many have reduced working hours on the agenda. There are also voices raised for reduced working hours through legislation. But maybe I'm a little bit provocative, but there is a nice to have and there is a need to have. And we think that there must be different full-time measures depending on different conditions. The 40-hour weeks can work for some, but it's not adequate for others. Thank you.
Thank you. We can dig in later with questions, of course. And the last speaker is Berardina.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Good morning, everyone. I would like to start maybe by giving a bit of context for those who are not familiar with the sector I'm responsible for. So the ETF is the European Transport Workers Federation. We represent workers across Europe and beyond, employed in all the transport sectors, from the land, railways, truck drivers, urban public transport, civil aviation, maritime. And in the maritime sector, we have seafarers, we have fishers, we have inland waterways, and the dock workers. So the dockers, in the docker section, we represent mostly blue-collar workers, as you can imagine, and some white collars working, for instance, for the port authorities. And why was and still is important to us in the port sector to talk about working time reduction? First of all, as in many other sectors, it's a work on shift. In most cases, it's 8 hours, day and night. Ports never stop. They work 24/7. It's a job that requires rotation of tasks. But the main reason why we started talking about reduction of working hour some years ago, actually, is in parts the introduction and increasing introduction of new technologies. Now everybody talks about digital transition. We experienced that since 1993 with the introduction of automation in the port sector and in Europe, by the way, because the first fully automated terminal was built in Rotterdam. It's almost 30 years ago, so you can imagine the disruptions that this could create already at that time for the union movement and among the workers. What happened since then? First of all, we, as unions, we tried to make up a strategy, because it's very easy to say, okay, we oppose any kind of new technologies. We don't like automation, but this is not the solution, because it would be a bit short-sighted. We know that we cannot stop this kind of process. We have to, the unions have the right, I think, to be part of the debate and to be part of the decision-making when prompting automation, for instance, but in other transitions, this is the same. Let's think about the green transition now. So what we did, we thought, and we still think, that collective bargaining is the first tool that unions have and that workers have. So first of all, kind of automation clauses, from the right to be informed and consulted when the managers wanted to introduce automation, to the reduction of working time with no loss of pay, of course. So maybe more part-time than before, early retirement schemes, these specifically for the, let's say, the senior doggers, who in most cases are not very familiar with the new technologies. They would need upskilling, reskilling as everybody, but probably it would be even more difficult for them. So the workers who are closer to retirement maybe could benefit from early retirement schemes related to the introduction of new technologies. This is also, in my view, a kind of working time reduction somehow. And at the same time, it would also allow to give access to the market, to the labor market, to the new generations of workers that are also more used to the digital skills, I think. So this is the situation over the years. Of course, as you can imagine, we have a puzzled situation in Europe. So there are some areas, some countries, and some ports who are much more advanced on this. Still, the only fully automated port with no people at all, almost no people at all, is in Rotterdam. In the rest of Europe, we have partly automated, so they still require the presence of workers. But year by year, we managed, through the unions at national level, to introduce these clauses in the CBAs. And this is the most important thing for us. We did it also at European level. It's still a proposal, but as ETF, we would like to have a kind of framework agreement on automation that includes the reduction of working time as a measure. Basically, in this case, in our sector, the reduction of working time has never been the final goal, actually. But one of the key elements, one of the key tools to counterbalance all the negative effects of new technologies and automation in the sector. So it could save literally jobs, because automation equals to replacement of people with machines. So the first big consequence is job losses, basically. This is our experience, and on a more concrete side, we had something like that, and it's already in place in Germany, because in 2018, the unions and the employers signed the so-called agreement for the future of work. It's just about ports. And it's all about automation and all the measures that you can use to balance the impact of automation. So reduction of working time for sure, and other kind of measures with a specificity. They created, but in Germany we have this very special system of co-determination that helps a lot in this case, the creation of a committee, of an automation committee at company level, with employers and workers sitting equally there and taking decisions on any thing related to the introduction of new technology. So there, the dockers, the unions had the power and still have the power to have a say and to push for instance, the reduction of working time as a measure that could help preventing, keeping good working condition basically, but also preventing job losses. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up question, I love the expression breaking the ceiling. So maybe how do you think in Berardina case, how do you still motivating people, but you see that you talk about that working reduction can use as a tool to fight and get job losses, to help moving your industry and improve the condition of workers, defend their rights. And you talk about also to accompany the evolution of the health sectors. So basically, how you say, okay, when we make negotiations, how you keep moving and continue breaking the ceilings, and what does motivate workers? If that's the fear that will continue to impact the intensification, the thing, or how do you keep them motivating through the years? I don't know if I'm making sense, but maybe you can talking about what is the next part, because we see that we are needed for collective bargaining, but okay, one is started, how we keep moving, because we have first victories, but we still have a long road to take.
Well, I don't think it's a problem to keep the motivation up because people really see that, and they've been really, really aware during this spring that they're actually part of their own shitty conditions in some way. Signing up for these empty shifts and sort of, taking those amongst the colleagues and dividing the empty shifts amongst them, and they're doing the employer's work. So they're making the solutions for the employers. And we've been talking really much about how you how you're part of the problem by doing this, and how life can be without that much overtime, and like was said yesterday, that it's really a question of staffing. No one wants to work like 400 hours of overtime a year. No one wants that. If you have low salaries, one incitement can be that you need the money. And another one can be that, okay, if I put myself on this list, at least I know when I'm going to take the punishment. But we need to have a mind shift and stop solving the problems that are really the employers. So yeah, it's both a shift of your own behavior and putting the responsibility where it belongs, at the employer's desk. But by doing this, solving the problem, the employer but we can get around with less people because you work so much overtime. So you're solving my problem. If we say no to the voluntary overtime, which does not exist, at least the employer has to force you to do it, but then it's visible in another way. So was that the answer to your question?
Yeah, I think it's well.
But the motivation is there because they're paying for it. They're paying for their own restaurant recovery, and it's that's not okay.
Okay, so how to put pressure on employer side and say, okay, we have people with us making noise and now we want to change. But
yeah, I think we reason awareness how it can be without all of this overtime. But at the same time, of course, if you have reduced working hours, the fear is that it's going to be a lot more overtime, and they're already hitting the ceiling for the overtime. But then the employer has to have or offer terms and conditions that are really attractive to make people educate themselves to our professions and also to stay in the profession, because that is big. It's a big issue as well. So the employers have to take their responsibility and be an attractive employer, because it's a really, really big shortage of our professions. So I don't really see how they dare to offer shitty conditions, but they do.
on the other side, about hiring staff, responsibility of employers, how do you see it?
To the motivation in the retail sector, I can say that there are a lot of offensives from employers and from their politicians. They want to have longer opening hours and also that the shops can be open on Sundays. And so the people see if we don't do anything, it will not stay like it is now, but it will getting even worse. So we are in the defensive for years already, and we are quite good in the defensive because people have to vote in the regions if they are okay with the new laws to open on Sundays and open longer in the evenings. And often the people won't know, so they understand that for people working in the shops is not good. But it's always in this defensive and it continues. So there is a need to have an offensive answer for better working hours and shorter working hours. And also people are really exhausted, and a lot of women also in the retail sector, they say it's not possible to have our private life. So and also the discussions and the surveys we do over the years is really a motivation here to get better conditions.
Yes, I heard a lot of inputs, so I will try to put some order. Because we talked about, for instance, shortages of workers, even in the previous panel. I agree, but from our point of view, honestly, there is a shortage of good jobs. So the point, and this is also about reduction of working hours, the point is the working conditions, because people are not, especially after all the changes we've been going through, the pandemic is just one of them, but even before the pandemic, the point is that people are not ready any longer to accept anything they're given. That's it. So this is one point. Another point about motivation. As Alma said, the first motivation for extra hours is the salary. So it's the money. It works in most cases, of course, but it should be a choice, first of all, that doesn't depend on other factors like shortages of workers, for instance. So I think the unions very often tend to counteract, which means being a bit defensive. Maybe they do it well, we do it well, but still in a defensive position and not offensive. In this case, with this narrative that we are creating and following about the reduction of working hours, I think we are doing a step forward. It can be related to different kind of reasons. As I explained, for my sector now, it's not, it's already working shift. So it's more about a tool to fight against the job losses, for instance. But in any case, there can be different kinds of motivation. But in any case, I think we are all going towards the same goal. And it's not even, I mean, we shouldn't take it for granted now, but I think it's one of the biggest trends for the future. So they want the employers, if they want it or not, this will happen with the unions as frontliners, because that's what we are supposed to do for our workers.
Thank you. Now time for questions. So if you have any, perfect. And we take a round of it.
Yeah, thank you. I think Alma's point highlights a very important issue, and we can compare it to what Adrien said about IG Metall, that if we leave negotiations to sectoral or company level bargaining, then the outcome is going to depend on the bargaining position. And I think labor intensive sectors are going to be on the losing end of such a setup. So, and if we look even in Sweden, the major reductions over time have always been at the national level through political influence. And we can see that, throughout Europe, basically, so that if we disintegrate and bargain on a company sectoral level, then the wins are going to be smaller and less frequent. So I would want the panel to reflect on that and say that, well, from my perspective, we very much advocate for either legislation or a central agreement, me representing the public sector, because we see that otherwise, at best, we're going to have a German situation where, like, the capital-intensive industries have now 40 years of 35 hours, some companies even 32 and less. But what wasn't said is that the public sector workers in Germany, of course, work 40 hours or even more sometimes. So we have this very, very unequal, situation in the labor market based on that disintegration. So we talk here about office versus industrial versus service jobs. I think we should talk more about the coordination of these claims that are coming from all over, because otherwise we are definitely going to be on the losing end, but I think all will lose from this. That's what history teaches us when we look at these issues. So that's just a comment that I would like the panel to reflect upon based on coming from different industries.
More questions?
I have to Berardina. Do you have already experience with the job saving effect of working time reduction in the port of Rotterdam? And when yes, then how are they?
For online people, maybe?
There are a lot of questions. The most provocative one is the following. The objective of the Working Time Directive is to protect the health and safety of workers. It says the maximum weekly working time, including overtime, at 48 hours per week. This was based on studies about the relationship between health and working hours. Are there scientific studies supporting the goal of reducing working hours, and how it will affect health and safety?
Want to start?
I can start by taking you on. Yeah, like I said, there is a nice to have and there is a need to have. So regarding legislation, I think for our members in the healthcare sector, the period of maybe 10 years, maybe achieving legislated work time reduction is too slow. It's too slow. And where does that put the workers in the healthcare sector compared to people working Monday through Friday in an office where they can go for a coffee break, have lunch, go home earlier on a Friday and have a nice weekend and relax. So Yeah, of course you can build your arguments through the research and everything, but I think that there is no one size fits all, like has been said many times during yesterday and today. So maybe some need to go in front because it's more of a even more urgent question for some. Yeah. I salute you for that, of course. And but you have shift working in that agreement as well, wasn't it? Yeah. So I mean, our members working day, evening, and night. We know that is bad for your health and higher risk of cancer and everything. So yeah, maybe that's relevant, but yeah. I'm not a strong believer of legislation. It's really too slow, but yeah, maybe both. I don't know, but yeah, we will keep on fighting for our members.
One after another, maybe. Bargaining and legislation after if needed. Maybe Berardina to answer a question on Margareta about.
Yeah, so in the Netherlands, there is no, for ports at least, there is no national CBA. There are only company CBA. They have like 64 CBAs that they renew in the port sector. So it's just company level. When we were talking about coordination in this case, the system it's really different. But there are some, I don't have the data now, but there are some good points on this since 1993. So they managed to keep not the same level of employment as before the introduction of a completely automated terminal, but there are still many dockers, especially that were basically, I don't want to go into detail, but that were basically kept for other sectors where automation was not there at the moment. So at least they managed to keep a kind of a balance between the jobs lost with the replacement with the machines and workers that have been moved to other sectors of the same. We're still talking about ports, just rotation of tasks for this part of the job that cannot be and will not be automated, hopefully never. So there are results. The point is that you always need, it's based on collective agreement, so bargaining, and you always need the counterparts on board for that. So the willingness of both sides. But I mean, at the moment, our Dutch unions represent more than 10,000 dockers. So it means that thankfully there are still people there, and the let's say the solutions that they found over the years worked.
It's for shorter working hours on a national level. In Switzerland, we have these popular initiatives, and we tried it several times. The last time was 2002 that we asked for a 36-hour week on a national level, and then it will be voted. So all the Swiss nationals have to vote. And there were 25% that said yes. So it's really, the rest said no. And so this is like, we were thinking about, is it the moment to do it again, to ask 36 hours, or already in our union to be okay about how many hours it should be? We are not, but it's, yes, also the initiative for more vacation, 6 weeks of vacation, it was no, really, people vote no. So this is the the way we could ask it on a national level, and looking at the past, we decided it's not the right way. For the moment, we take the way of the collective agreements.
Can you repeat the question about online? Because the reply, okay.
I would like to add something from the German experiences on your question too. We have, for example, also in the seaports, the 35 hours, but never declared. Only they managing in 3 days, in whole 3 days, because all this shift work. Yeah? And in the printing industry, we have shift work whole around in the newspapers. We have 7 days around day and night shifts, and it is possible, and it was really realized also there with a full compensation of staff because of the shift organization. But in all the public services, it is in fact much more difficult because the organization degree of trade unions is much lower than in metal or printing industry. But anyway, today we have a new, a little bit a new situation, because we have all in the public services this lack of staff. And so the employers, the public employers, are looking for people, and so they are a little bit pressed to make concessions. And so, for example, Anke Toran yesterday had not the possibility to tell us that we have now the new demand for our collective bargaining in the public services for the communal sector. 8% more wage, but also 3 days more free, not holiday, but disposable time. And 1 day plus only for trade union members. This is something new. And else we have a lot of examples, but you are right, this is only on a sectoral or even enterprise level of models with 35 hours or 36 hours in hospitals, in social services, and so on. But anyway, it is developing somewhat in the direction of more free time, even for people who not gaining so much money. They, when they ask, around 60% saying, no, even when I don't earn so much, I decide, I choose more free time instead of more wage. And so there is a little shift in this direction. And now, but you are completely right, now the task for the trade unions is really to cooperate more and to coordinate their demands. Yeah.
For Mirjam. The retail trade is an economic sector with particularities in terms of working hours, working weekdays, weekends, different night shifts. In your perspective, to what extent can policies to reduce the number of opening hours and open discussion in Portugal benefit the discussion on reducing working hours? Opening.
Is that better? Yes, that's it. Yeah, sorry. Just, well, it's sort of a reflection because, I mean, in terms of the issue about the legislation at European level, obviously we have, we have the framework of the Working Time Directive. And I think, everybody, or yeah, we are sort of very sensitive about whether, you know, we want to go down that path of actually opening that up in terms of the current political framework and the composition. So there's that aspect. And I'm also thinking, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the opinion that we're going to be drafting in the ESC, because I think one of the things that we will probably try and push for is really to say that, you know, we need to strengthen trade unions' capacities, and well, the social partners actually, as was said, it's, you know, you need somebody to bargain with to address this issue. But we've just actually had an opinion which was brought by somebody from the employers group, which was about the impact of demography on social Europe. And one of the things they wanted to do with that opinion was to push the idea that, you know, we all need to work longer. We're living longer, and so we need to work longer. And the initial draft was, you know, very much just, yeah, you know, we're living longer, we need to work longer. And from the workers' side, we brought in amendments to say that, okay, well, not to say, okay, we necessarily have to work longer, but if people make the choice to work longer, we need to, they need to have the conditions to make this possible, which includes, you know, working conditions and then working time. So just that side of the argument to say that if actually, you know, employers are saying that, you know, for demographic needs we need people to work longer, then this issue of actually people reducing working time to, you know, enable them to then, if they make that choice to work longer, is maybe also part of the argument that we can be putting forward. Thanks.
Some reaction?
Yeah, I can respond on your last comment there. Yeah, we are supposed to work longer. In Sweden, we're rising the age for retirement from 65 to 67, and it's going to be 69. So for our members, we're 30% already work part-time because it's too strenuous to work full-time, and you also have to work longer. I mean, I'm totally with you that the conditions during your work life has to change. So we see it as two steps. It's going to be possible to work full-time and also all the time you need to work. So to enabling full-time work, the whole work life. And in our perspective, from my union, there has to be differences because the conditions are different. Some can work many years, even if they are past 70 or even more. And some have to retire really early because they can't do it anymore. So there are different degrees in hell. So yeah, there has to be differences, I think. But yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we live longer. So yeah, and especially in the healthcare sector. And the demographics, like I said, fewer have to take care of a growing elderly, multi-diseased population. So yeah, I agree.
To respond on the question on retail, yeah, it's true in retail trade, the shops are open in the evening. The shops are open some Sundays. We fight for there will be not more Sundays than it's now. So people will continue to have to work in evenings and on Sundays. That's why it will not be resolved with shorter working hours. That's why we are always asking shorter and better working hours. And a really important aspect is the planability. So it's one of the asks also that we know earlier when they have to work, to have to get the schedules earlier, not that they are changed in the last minute, or if it's changed later, that there will be more paid. And also for the overtime, we ask that it's more paid, so try to limit these cases. And in our ask for the next negotiation with Coop, this retail trade, we have one free weekend, so Saturday and Sunday free in 1 month. We have 2 days, if it's not the weekend, still 2 days, one after the other free, not working 3 days, have 1 day free and working 4 days, but 2 days in 1 week that are free, one after the other. We have also to ask that 2 times in the week they can leave work at 6 o'clock in the evening, not to work until 7 or 8. So it's really to get a shorter working hours with better and more previsibility in the working hours.
It should be green. Okay, excellent. Yeah. Just as a very quick comment, I think there is a big value. I understand conditions are different in different industries, but I think there is a certain value to having general standards like a 5-day work week, 8-hour day, and so on. And I think it's great to have like an avant-garde, but I think it's then the duty of the other trade unions to follow suit, basically. And I think, particularly in Germany, we have been lacking on that. One very brief question about this case of working time reduction and its interaction with wages in the case of shift workers, night shifts. Because in Germany, there has been some debate that we could also maybe reduce working time for night shift workers, but then the employers oftentimes want to have in return the additional pay that they get for those shifts, because they are usually paid better night shifts than day shifts. And I was wondering, did you basically transform this additional pay into free time, or did the workers get to keep both? Because I noticed that many trade union members are quite hesitant to drop this night shift allowance because they depend on it for their household income, basically. Thanks.
Should I answer? Yeah. The first time we negotiated work time reduction in 2016, we really didn't pay for it. Our mediation institute was really, really pissed. But we had no fixed numbers in our agreement at that time. So it was supposed to be paid like 0.2 or 0.6, depending on the reduction for those who were affected by the reduction. But since we didn't have any numbers in the agreement, no fixed numbers, it didn't really get paid. They got a raise anyway. This year, we had numbers in the agreement on the industrial mark, which sets the level of the pay rise, was on 3.3%, and we paid 0.25 of that for the work time reduction, and for everyone. So it wasn't paid by those who were affected by it. So the payment was from everyone. So of course, a lot of people were not that happy with that. But yeah, but we didn't touch the commissions for the night shift additions. So it was on the pay rise amount.
Thank you. We are running out of time, so thank you for this debate and for the question and discussion. An open question, but I think we have managed to get a few strings to orient it with the next debate. We will take some time, and I will pass the floor to India, and I will call to Margareta also to make a small conclusion on the conference. And thank you for your participation.
Right. Yeah, so we will wrap up relatively quickly because aware people are probably quite hungry. So first of all, Thank you very much to all of our speakers and our moderators across the conference. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much to the interpreters as well, providing live translation yesterday and today. Again, really, really appreciated. And thank you also to Emma from the ETUC, who has been managing all of our registrations and on online tech. So really appreciate all of your help. Thank you. And to our technician from managing the live interpreters, but I'm not sure he is in the room at the moment, but that's fine. Great. And also, yeah, again, thank you very much to the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung, to the Alex Ferry Foundation, to the ETUC and to EPSU, providing financial support to the network and to help organize this conference. Obviously, big thank you to the organizing team, Margareta, Maria, Adrien, Gudmundur and Alexander Arnson, who are joining us online, I think, from Iceland and the UK. And yeah, so next up is lunch. Following that will be the members event. If you would like to stay for that but haven't told us, you're very welcome to just come and let us know during the lunchtime. And during the lunch, please remember to go and sign your name for today on the sign-in sheets as well if you haven't done so already. Yeah, do you want to say anything, Adrien?
Perfect. Just to, we invite you to welcome, to join us if you want to continue to participate to our exchange. We have a webinar coming every month, so please join us. We are willing to invite you to join us to continue this discussion and to grow the debate around recommendation. So thank you, and I think that's all for today. And we wish you a happy end of the day, and that's it. And thank you also, yes, to India, because you are